The island of the dolls, located in the channels of Xochimilco, south of the center of Mexico City, is a chinampa of the Laguna de Tixulo, and one of the main attractions of the channels. Dolls of various styles and colors are found throughout the island, originally placed by the former owner of the island, Don Julian Santana Barrera. Julian believed that dolls helped to chase away the spirit of a girl who drowned years ago. Julian died in 2001 of a heart attack. Sources say he was close to the same spot where the girl drowned. Mellified man, or a human mummy confection, was a legendary medicinal substance created by steeping a human cadaver in honey. The concoction is detailed in Chinese medical sources, including the Benkeo Gangmu of the 16th century. Relying on a second-hand account, the text reports a story that some elderly men in Arabia, nearing the end of their lives, would submit themselves to a process of mummification in honey to create a healing confection. This process differed from a simple body donation because of the aspect of self-sacrifice. The mummification process would ideally start before death. The donor would stop eating any food other than honey, going as far as to bathe in the substance. Shortly, the donor's feces and even sweat would consist of honey. When this diet finally proved fatal, the donor's body would be placed in a stone coffin filled with honey. After a century or so, the contents would have turned into a sort of confection reputedly capable of healing broken limbs and other ailments. This confection would then be sold in street markets as a hard-to-find item with a hefty price. Joyce Carol Vincent, the 15th of October 1965 to the 21st of December 2003, was a British woman whose death went unnoticed for more than 2 years as her corpse lay undiscovered in her North London bedsit. Prior to her death, Vincent had cut off nearly all contact with those who knew her. She resigned from her job in 2001 and moved into a shelter for victims of domestic abuse. Around the same time, she began to reduce contact with friends and family. She died in her bedsit around December 2003 with neither family, co-workers, nor neighbors taking notice. Her remains were discovered on the 25th of January 2006, with the cause of death believed to be either an asthma attack or complications from a recent peptic ulcer. Vincent died of unknown causes around December 2003. She was an asthma sufferer, and an asthma attack, or complications surrounding her recent peptic ulcer, have been suggested as a possible cause of death. Her remains were described as mostly skeletal according to the pathologist, and she was lying on her back, next to a shopping bag, surrounded by Christmas presents she had wrapped but never delivered. It is not known to whom the presents were addressed. Neighbors had assumed the flat was unoccupied, and the odor of decomposing body tissue was attributed to nearby waste bins. The flat's windows did not allow direct sight into the accommodation. It was a noisy building, which may explain why no one questioned the constant noise from the television, which remained turned on until she was discovered. Half of her rent was being automatically paid to Metropolitan Housing Trust by benefits agencies, leading officials to believe that she was still alive. However, over 2 years, £2,400 in unpaid rent accrued, and housing officials decided to repossess the property. Her corpse was discovered on the 25th of January 2006, when bailiffs had forced entry into the flat. The television and heating were still running due to her bills being continually paid for by automatic debit payments and debt forgiveness. The dancing plague, or dance epidemic, of 1518 was a case of dancing mania that occurred in Strasbourg, Alsace, now modern-day France, in the Holy Roman Empire in July 1518. Somewhere between 50 and 400 people took to dancing for days. Engraving portrays 3 women affected by the plague. Work based on original drawing by Peter Bruegel, who supposedly witnessed a subsequent outbreak in 1564 in Flanders. Events: the outbreak began in July 1518, when a woman began to dance fervently in a street in Strasbourg. Historical documents, including physician notes, cathedral sermons, local and regional chronicles, and even notes issued by the Strasbourg City Council, are clear that the victims danced. It is not known why. Historical sources agree that there was an outbreak of dancing after a single woman started dancing. A group of mostly young women joined in, and the dancing did not seem to die down. It lasted for such a long time that it attracted the attention of the Strasbourg magistrate and bishop, and some number of doctors ultimately intervened, putting the afflicted in a hospital. There are theories as to why this happened, but for the sake of not boring the viewers, I'm not going to go into these theories. Gloomy Sunday Hungarian, Zomor of a Sunap, also known as the Hungarian Suicide Song, is a popular song composed by Hungarian pianist and composer Reza Seres, and published in 1933. The original lyrics were titled "The World is Ending," and were about despair caused by war, ending in a quiet prayer about people's sins. Poet Laszlo Java wrote his own lyrics to the song, titled Sad Sunday, in which the protagonist wants to commit suicide following his lover's death. The latter lyrics ended up becoming more popular, while the former were essentially forgotten. The song was first recorded in Hungarian by Paul Karma in 1935. Gloomy Sunday was first recorded in English by Hal Kemp in 1936, with lyrics by Sam M. Lewis, and was recorded the same year by Paul Robeson, with lyrics by Desmond Carter. It became well known throughout much of the English-speaking world after the release of a version by Billie Holiday in 1941. Lewis's lyrics referred to suicide, and the record label described it as the Hungarian suicide song. There is a recurring urban legend which claims that many people have committed suicide while listening to this song. There have been several urban legends regarding the song over the years, mostly involving it being allegedly connected with various numbers of suicides, and radio networks reacting by purportedly banning the song. However, most of these claims are unsubstantiated. Press reports in the 1930s associated at least 19 suicides, both in Hungary and the United States, with Gloomy Sunday, but most of the deaths supposedly linked to it are difficult to verify. The urban legend appears to be, for the most part, simply an embellishment of the high number of Hungarian suicides that occurred in the decade when the song was composed due to other factors such as famine and poverty, as well as the rise of Nazi Germany's influence in Europe. No studies have drawn a clear link between the song and suicide. In January 1968, about 35 years after writing the song, its composer did take his own life. Cotard's delusion, also known as walking corpse syndrome or Cotard syndrome, is a rare mental disorder in which the affected person holds the delusional belief that they are dead, do not exist, are putrefying, or have lost their blood or internal organs. Statistical analysis of a 100-patient cohort indicated that denial of self-existence is present in 45% of the cases of Cotard syndrome. The other 55% of the patients presented with delusions of immortality. Mel's Hole is, according to an urban legend, an allegedly bottomless pit near Ellensburg, Washington. Claims about it were first made on the radio show Coast to Coast AM by a guest calling himself Mel Waters. Later investigation revealed no such person was listed as residing in that area, and no credible evidence that the hole exists. The legend of the bottomless hole started on February 21, 1997, when a man identifying himself as Mel Waters appeared as a guest on Coast to Coast AM with Art Mel. Waters claimed that he owned rural property 9 miles west of Ellensburg in Kittitas County, Washington that contained a mysterious hole. According to Waters, the hole had an unknown depth of at least 80,000 feet. He claimed to have measured its depth using fishing line and a weight, although he still had not hit bottom by the time 80,000 feet of line had been used. He also claimed that his neighbor's dead dog had been seen alive sometime after it was thrown into the hole. According to Waters, the hole's magical properties prompted US federal agents to seize the land and fund his relocation to Australia.